I'm Master Saturn. Thank you for joining me for another BDSM United podcast. As we take a slightly different turn here on our podcast, I wanted to bring back more of our daily podcast shows, especially in the season from Samhain over to Saturnalia. And that is the period of time that's late October in through December, kind of coming up to the new year. And I wanted to start to bring in more of our occult and our astrological influences into our BDSM education because those things are important to Master Saturn and Little Libra, as you can gather from the planetary slash zodiac names that we take for ourselves. Me being Master Saturn, me being someone who is devoted to that Saturnian gnosis, and someone who's a practitioner of what I call Saturnian sex magic, and just kind of a devotee per se of the deity and planetary energy, the gnosis of Saturn. Really loving that Saturn myth as well, and the planet of Saturn. And then little Libra, really, she loves her everything about the season that she was born, and everything about what makes her unique in her birth chart and in the astrology that lines up with her personality. And so we work together and we are in a relationship together, uh, surpassing 4 years now. And we work together on this podcast, on our page, Whips, Chains, and Duct Tape, and all of the BDSM United uh, just total group of resources. We've been working on these together for the last 4 years, and she's been working on them for um, since 2012. So we're coming up on a lot of different years, almost 12 years working on BDSM educational resources. We used to do before the pandemic, we did a lot of community events. We met at a munch that she was hosting, and I was going to learn from her because I was hosting munches in my city, a neighboring city, and I wanted to grow them. And she had a very growing and very prosperous uh, munches with a lot more people, a lot more involvement, a lot more going on. And she had a better community than what I had, and I wanted to grow mine. And so we hooked up for that reason, met each other, and we've been together ever since. Today, I wanted to talk about the cusp of Libra and Scorpio. The date that I am recording this is October 25th, and we're right on a certain season. The Libra Scorpio cusp. It's a mixture of the seventh sign of the zodiac, Libra, and the eighth sign of the zodiac, Scorpio, where the airy, social, theatrical Libra meets, confronts the more serious, deeply feeling, and critical nature of Scorpio. This is a period that can be characterized by the themes of drama and criticism. And for my notes today, I'm using The Secret Language of Relationships. It's a book that's been around since the mid 1990s. I think it was first published in 1997. It's a really good book, tested and true, and is a very good work that I'll be using to kind of bring some more aspects of astrology into our podcast. So this is the season that we're in right now, or we're actually kind of coming out of this season. The last several days have been kind of a mixture of coming out of the Libra season and into the Scorpio season. And these are different seasons in the year when planets are aligned in a certain way. And the way that the planets are aligned, they affect our time. See, we look at time often as we look at a clock, we look at a calendar, and we measure these things into blocks, into numbers, and we assign numbers to them. But really, what time is it is the alignment and moving of heavenly bodies of planets, and that's what makes the time what it is. It's the moving of the planets. And so the planets have a big impact on when you go to work, when you wake up, when you go to sleep, um, how you structure your day oftentimes is structured. You've assigned numbers, or we've assigned numbers to them when you take your lunch at a certain time. For instance, you're taking it when the planet is aligned, when the sun is aligned with the earth in a certain way, and that's how we know the time. And so planets have a bigger impact on us than what we sometimes think, and or sometimes are conscious or aware of. So this is a season characterized by themes of drama and criticism, a heightened sense of drama of life, both in a philosophical and a personal sense, leads to an increased awareness of the dynamics of one's own existence, past and present. A highly critical attitude emerges that cuts away careless generalization, and sloppy thinking, and aims for the essence of truth. If you feel during this season, perhaps you do, that you are starting to be a little more introspective. You're starting to maybe think more about uh, what is true in your life, what is real. You're starting to think more about um, uh, maybe you're starting to begin to think more about yourself. Maybe you're beginning to think again about what you're eating and what you're drinking, and some of your behaviors. Um, these attitudes can lead to profound changes in personal relationships, how leisure time is spent, and in general, to a reevaluation of one's place in the world. See, the planets are lined up in such a way that you can work with them or you can work against them. And if you're starting to have these feelings and you just carelessly say, "Oh, I just don't want to think about those things right now. I just want to be in a season of naps. I just want to take lots of naps. I don't want to do the work." Well, you're missing out on the planets working for your benefit. So these big personalities, those born on the Libra Scorpio cusp, may prove too much for anyone to handle. See, this is the time frame when both Master Saturn and Little Libra were born. She's a Libra, of course, and I'm a Scorpio. And our influence can not only dominate our immediate circle, but we often go far beyond it. Our influence is surely personal, but we're somewhat charismatic individuals. We're often intellectual, since our ideas are well thought out and highly developed. See, that's how we approach BDSM. We try to think about how it all works together. Some people don't like that. They just want it to be all about play and fun. And those are definitely aspects of BDSM, play and fun. And role play can be fun, but the role goes deeper than the role play when you're in a power exchange relationship. So Libra slash Scorpios usually have something to say on almost any subject. And maybe that's why we bring different subjects into this BDSM sphere than what you're used to hearing. Most BDSM podcasts don't talk about magic or occult or astrology. They don't talk about religion. They don't talk about some of these different things. It's all about relationships. But um, I hate to tell you that relationships are messy, and relationships have to do with a lot more than just how you act. You need to know sometimes why you are acting, and how to act appropriately for the right season, the right timing. There's a time when things work, but then there's also a time when when trying to do certain things is a wasted effort. Our tendency for preaching from the pulpit makes us well suited to be teachers, us Libra slash Scorpios, whether professionally or informally. And our students usually come to depend heavily on us for guidance. And if you're of the Libra slash Scorpio, uh, if that's heavy in your birth chart, or heavy if you were born this time of year, perhaps that's true of you too. And you should find some way to be an influence around others, to become more of a teacher on some level, uh, of the things that you enjoy and the things that you have learned well. Those born on this cusp meld an airy mental nature of Libra with the watery emotional characteristics of Scorpio. See, there's four elements. There's air, there is water, there's fire, and there's earth. And air is definitely mental, intellectual, philosophical. Water is emotional, relational. Earth is physical and stable. And fire is adventurous and can be prone to outbursts, just like fire. And so the different signs fall within the different elements as well. Libra is an air sign, and Scorpio is a water sign, which is more emotional. And so these two aspects of their personality are often at war, with the head guiding and the heart denying, or vice versa. Libra Scorpios can get into a real mess with themselves when their intellectual and their emotional natures clash. Periods of Libra indecision may be broken by outbursts of Scorpio aggression, and self assured Scorpio determination and control may be undermined by Libra procrastination, and uh, the tensions and the disappointments of life can at times prove too much for them, such as they retreat into isolation. And that's definitely things that we want to watch out for. We don't want to drift into isolation. We don't want to just do things. We want to have times of comfort, but we don't want to just do things that are comfortable, because oftentimes we are evading our potential. Libra slash Scorpios benefit from physical exercise. And it's just, getting up and moving around. Sound diets, just kind of um, knowing what you eat and what is good for you. It's not some specific diet that you have to have, not some blanket diet for everyone, but what works well with your body, and all activities that promote healthy contact with the world, and relationships and activities that lessen their tendency to isolate themselves from the world will prove beneficial to Libra slash Scorpios. The mental orientation of those born on the cusp of drama and criticism this time of year appears in their perceptiveness and sharp insightfulness. The twin dangers here are a sense of personal infallibility and a tendency to be overcritical. The disapproving attitudes of Libra Scorpios can hurt those close to them, undermining their confidence in subtle ways. The intimates of Libra Scorpios may have to fight back against such negative expectations and predictions, just not just to protect, but to liberate themselves. Those born on this cusp should seriously think about the project of learning to back off and not only keeping their opinions to themselves, but in many cases letting go of them completely. So it's often a good thing. It's, we all have biases and opinions, but we are not infallible. We're humans. And so even though we sometimes stand on our opinions strongly, we need to make sure that they're not hills for us to die on. Those born on this cusp have a modern approach in most areas, but also shelter an undeniable sense of tradition. Ring, 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 this is us. We are traditionalists, but we definitely see that there is a necessity for being modernizing some of those traditions. And so there must be some middle path forward. And that's always been something that we've sensed with BDSM. There has to be a middle part forwards, a way that um, doesn't disrespect tradition, but allows for some innovation and some flexibility. Because when the traditions were made, there wasn't an internet. There wasn't a lot of the things that we have today. A lot of the influences that we cannot escape. We just simply can't escape them. To go back to the the times when traditions were made, and so traditions were made in a time and in a place where they didn't have access to, or they didn't have a lot of the modern things that we have. So it's impossible, unless we become some kind of like BDSM Amish people, to throw away our internet and electricity and go camp in the woods and be the BDSM of the 1950s and 60s. See, and none of us are interested in doing that. And even if we rejected all of the things, all of modern, so all of our modern stuff today, we still were influenced up until this time by those modern things. So even if we ditch the internet and move into the woods, we were still largely influenced by the internet. And so traditions don't always work. They're not always going to work. I hope you kind of can see what I'm talking about. Is in so far as we try to be as traditional as we can't truly be traditional, because there are modern influences that we have in our lives up until this point, and there's going to continue to be modern influences in our life. And so there has to be some middle path forward, someplace that um, takes account uh, of modern times, but doesn't disrespect tradition. As responsible as many Libra slash Scorpios seem in many areas of life, they have an undeniably wild, unpredictable side. Dramatic and impulsive, they'll unhesitatingly fly in the face of society's moral codes to assert their values or express themselves, which they can do both that they can do flamboyantly. Even in the mildest of those born on this cusp have an exhibitionistic side and want and need others to take notice of them. The private lives of Libra Scorpios may include many love affairs, charting a path strewn with the broken hearts of those who have had relationships with them. Their particular brand of charisma, impulsiveness, and mental power make them formidable and sometimes even dangerous individuals to be involved with. Sensuousness and passion are important themes in the lives of those born on this cusp of drama and criticism. In their relationships with others, however, they may exhibit a split between these two areas, treating sexuality quite different from sensuality and basing a relationship squarely on either one or the other, and only rarely on both. We often express our sensuousness in our love of the beautiful and tasteful objects with which surround us. We sometimes or often have an appreciation of art or music or literature. And those who become romantically involved with us must beware of addictive tendencies in our relationships. We can have deep attachments that go beyond the usual and even healthy limits, which may result in dependencies, painful breakups, uh, and symptoms that resemble drug withdrawal when we're apart. The most successful type of Libra/Scorpio personality is able to structure relationships so that both parties have their own space and retain their identities. Less successful individuals born on this cusp may be fated to experience a painful string of failed relationships. A combination of deep love and friendship is a marriage within uh, Libra Scorpios possible. However, such a bond will overcome almost any difficulties that may arise. So that's a lot. And it may seem, uh, it may seem general or applicable to everyone. And in some ways, that's true. Astrology is somewhat applicable to everyone. You may have felt like you identified with some of those things, and you may not have been born in this season, but this is a season, well, let me say it this way. The reason why you feel that way is because the planets affect all of us. We are all enduring this season of in this time right now. And the way that the planets are aligned isn't just disconnected from us, it is connected to us because our physiology uh, changes. The chemicals in our brain and they change and they shift with the planets. So there is definitely a physiological and our physiology is connected to us spiritually, our physiology is connected to us chemically, our physiology is connected to how we think. And so in just purely cognitively and intellectually, the planets and the way that they move, the way that the moon moves, the way the amount of sunlight that we have access to in a day, the amount of darkness that we have access to at different seasons. Just different seasons affect us seasonally and affect us differently. So even if you're not a spiritual person, you're still going to be affected planetarily through physiology and cognitively and intellectually. You're still going to have a physiological effect. The planets are still going to have an effect on you. So it's interesting to note that astrology wasn't always magical. It wasn't always occult. It was oftentimes in the past related with science. It was a science before it was magic. And so, even if you don't approach things, maybe you're an atheist and you don't approach anything spiritually, scientifically these types of things definitely play a part. Oftentimes, we don't realize that it takes many, many years, um, oftentimes beyond our lifetime, for the planets to make their full cycle, make their full rotation back to the time that you were born, that they were aligned when you were born. So each person and each day and each season of this life, of our lifetime, is going to be somewhat unique. There's not going to be uh, the it's not going to be the same. Oftentimes we think that it just, in the 365 days of the year, we're just going to make some magical cycle that we are, that October 25th of every year is going to be exactly the same for us. But it's not the case. Astrology is much broader than that. October 24th of the last 100 year, or sorry, October 25th of the last 100 years has been absolutely unique each October 25th. Oftentimes we don't see that. We don't know to see that because we approach horoscopes and things or our experience with them is based out of some generalization that we see in a newspaper, or we just see a fortune cookie or a fortune cookie's view of astrology. We don't see how it really does have more of a scientific effect in our lives. I'm Master Saturn. Thank you for joining me for this BDSM United podcast. Definitely not something that you were expecting in a BDSM or podcast, but we are a little more holistic. There's a reason why we do and teach the things that we teach, because there are things that are affecting your power exchange relationships and affecting your relationships that you need to be looking at and you need to be considering. There's scientific slash spiritual things that affect your relationships, and planets and seasons are one of those things that we definitely want you to begin to just take more notice of and maybe look into, see how they're affecting you. Well, today's the last day of Libra season. Tomorrow will be the first day of Scorpio season. And if you're listening to this and days, weeks, months from now, maybe you're accessing this in the archive, it's still applicable to you, because you know what? An October 25th will come around again. And there's a lot of other information that is attached to this that makes it relevant for you. You can find me on the web in our naughty site, mastersaturn.com. You can also find all of our podcast resources at bdsmunited.com. Thank you for joining us today, and it was a pleasure talking with you, and I'll talk with you again soon.